just a couple of extra thoughts, because much of what I could be saying has been said by previous speakers quite well. But I feel like I should begin with my name is Kate, and I'm from Arizona.
Are you really from Arizona?
Unfortunately so. And I've lived in Arizona. I was born in New York, but I've lived in Arizona most of my life. And it's the first time, I guess, in really my adult and understanding age that I'm ashamed to be from Arizona. So I told Sharon when she first called to ask me if I would share some of our experiences that I don't have no expertise in immigration, but it is true we are living in the epicenter, and we are the poster child for pretty much doing everything wrong. So whatever I say, make sure your state doesn't do that. I run a traditional planning council, if such a thing exists. We are the state that authored Senate Bill 1070 and passed it. And even though it is being moved from court to court, there are many aspects of it that are already being implemented. You've already heard that we are the state that has Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He's been in office. He's an elected official, and it was interesting for me to hear how differently states that have, the professional track versus the elected track. He is the sheriff of Pink Boxer Short fame. I'm sure you've read about that. These are all of his ways of capturing the media attention before he seized on the immigration debate. He also fed the prisoners ostrich eggs, and then, since I guess those were so affordable, started serving ostrich to our prisoners. I know I come from a conservative state, and many years ago, I was a lobbyist for 14 years, and many years ago I worked for our Senator Barry Goldwater. But for those of you old enough to remember who Barry Goldwater is, he would not be accepted.
He's not conservative enough.
Yeah, he's actually a moderate, which is almost an extinct breed of politician. So I think more what I want to share with you is the culture that is created by this kind of dialogue, these kinds of laws that are being passed. It supports and even incites vigilante groups. We had a group of people. It's very popular to take a boat up to one of our lakes and camp by the side of the lake. We had a group of campers, boaters, campers, shoot at another group of campers not too far away. And on the news it was reported because they believed they were illegal immigrants. Just this week, our legislature passed what is being referred to as a birther bill to ensure that somebody like Barack Obama would not be able to get on our ballot to run for president in our state because he doesn't have legal documentation that they are, well, they wanted something, I couldn't believe this, but they wanted something higher than a certification of live birth, and one of the options was circumcision. Certificate. Yeah, I
Fingerprints are enough.
I can't, I have a son who's 22, and I don't even remember if I got a certificate for that. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on with anchor children, because that's what we're seeing, and the problems that result from children being left without parents. We think it's a really great thing if only one of the parents is taken away by ICE. We were called in on a situation with a 7-year-old boy who was acting out and challenging authority after witnessing his father being dragged from the house after they broke down the door. It was late at night, they broke down the door, they dragged the father out, threw him on the ground, and handcuffed him. And the television cameras were there clearly all staged. And this young boy is really having problems, functioning in a school setting. We also had a 16-year-old girl who finally came to her school teacher to tell her that her parents, both of them, had been gone for 2 weeks. She was taking care of 2 younger siblings and had no food in the house. A similar situation, we were called in by a hospital of an older sibling left with 3 younger siblings, one of whom was in remission for leukemia, and the leukemia had recurred, and she was not of age to ask for treatment for her younger sibling. Our Department of Economic Security is just basically overwhelmed with anchor children issues. I think some of the things that we've put in place to address this include, food, utilities, shelter, clothing, of course, crisis child care, financial stability programs and tax preparation where you're not asked for your documentation, employment preparation and training, legal advice and support. And we have worked primarily through the faith community because people in these communities are very fearful of going to anybody that represents government. And they're fearful that we are sharing information with others. But they will typically, if they've had a relationship in a faith community, go back to the faith community. Our public safety, our police departments, our fire departments are perplexed what to do. They are told they're not to render care, but they're public safety people, and so they render care first. We hear from employers, our citrus and melons, cotton crops, all of those. The labor pool has basically gone back to Mexico, and so when you go to buy citrus and lemons and melons from Arizona, you'll see that they're going to be a lot more expensive. These are landscapers, people that work in the hospitality industries, and they are a local source of cheap labor. It seems that we have blamed this disenfranchised group. And because of the economic downturn, even bright, capable, reasonable people, engineers laid off from Intel, will talk as if these are the people coming to take their jobs. I mean, what are they thinking? I think it's all that pervasive fear, anger, despair of what's going to happen. And I just in leading into what's going to be a discussion to share with you that I lie awake at night without thoughtful, comprehensive immigration reform. The debate is always going to be led by the fringe element on the two sides, and it sounds as if maybe as many as 20% and 20%, and then we have 60% in the middle. But it was true that 1070 was supported by 60% of the people, and I was glad to hear that the reason it looks like it's so well supported is people are desperate. They want some answer, some solution, and so in the absence of anything more reasonable, they will gravitate something that ordinarily, and I would like to think that the Arizonans I've known and grown up with are not at all in support of these kinds of programs and policies. And so I come to you today with certainly less technical information and more questions. What would you have in terms of advice to give to those of us who are operating in these oases of just really despair of what's happening to our communities because the debate has been captured by a group of people that do not reflect the wishes and the collective wishes of its community. But once seized, they seem to be moving forward with the confidence that they have everybody on board. And so I'd like to hear from you more than I have to share with you. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue with that theme in terms of if you guys have any questions, but also if you want to give any advice, give any support. Yes.
I just have a question as someone who's not very well knowledgeable about this issue yet. He talked earlier about the two sides and the use of language, and I was just capturing, when you were talking about anchor babies. In Arizona, do both sides of the debate use that to describe children who were born in the U.S.?
Yes, and I wish I'd used something different, but yes, we're not hearing from the more reasonable thinkers. The culture in our state today is not a culture I've ever seen before. It is, you have permission to be bigoted and to shout obscenities. You know, it's you go to even a public we have spring baseball, and you will hear these things erupting, and it's just because our vocal leaders and our governor and our legislature have set the tone. And so it allows people who probably are acting on fear to behave in a way you would never expect.
So building on that theme real quick, this suggestion was made that rather than talking about the problem, when we talk about the problem, we also need to be talking about the solution. And I actually heard that the other day too, talk about 25% of the problem, 75% about the solution. And so this fly needs to be deported.
I think we can get consensus for that.
No, sorry, yes.
I'd like to offer, I think that, what Cheryl and the tack that they're taking, and it might be a theme that would permeate all of what we're talking about, is setting up. We heard it in I think Frank mentioned it, is the whole business side and talking about ROI, and this is what the folks can understand and wrap their heads around, and it can counter that bigoted blindness of setting up the equations that allow reasoned people to make those determinations, those people that are in the middle and can swing either way. We have to think more about business and operate and selling things the way, and marketing things the way that businesses do, to get the impact that we want.
Has anybody been able to do that? I mean, what are some ways that your communities have been able to serve as a neutral convener to help convene these very difficult conversations? Can anybody talk about that? Candace, are you guys doing that?
We are not doing that because maybe 10 years ago, there was an effort among leadership in the immigrant community and state government to basically change the discussion on immigration. And as I'm, listening to the two of you, and many of you know that I've lived for many years in Arizona, and left in 1988 because it was getting too right-wing for me. And now 1988 seems like the good old days. And what was done was some conversation with both the previous governor, the second governor back, who is now in federal prison for other unrelated offenses, and the most recent governor, who is on his way to federal prison for unrelated offenses. And the one was a Republican, the other was a Democrat. Both of them embraced the idea that immigrants were an asset to our state. And significant public policy changes resulted. And among them were, Illinois does not participate at all in E-Verify because they tested it and found it to be inaccurate. And so no employers go through that now in Illinois. The significant state policies, for example, our S-CHIP program, Children's Health Insurance, does not ask if children were born here or if they're here legally. So they call it all kids, and it includes all kids. And except now they're restricting it to 300% of poverty, which most of us think is terrible. And pregnant women with incomes under 200% are included in Medicaid. There is very significant requirements around bilingual education in school at the state level, so that if you look, almost every place a state could make a decision to welcome immigrants as opposed to spurn them, Illinois has welcomed them. And it was all about leadership. I mean, there's a group of maybe 5 or 10 people that did that.
Yes, ma'am.
We've got a little mini Arizona activity happening in one of Dallas's suburbs in Farmers Branch. And they passed an ordinance in the city that said if you don't have your documented papers, we won't rent to you, we will stop you in the traffic light, we will drive you out of this community, you cannot work here, you cannot eat here, you cannot have your kids here. And so a lot of immigrants, mostly Hispanic, left Farmers Branch and moved to other suburbs because there's enough housing in other places for them to go. So now, because this is a small enough community to watch this like a test tube, their sales tax is way down. They're laying off teachers. Their local small businesses that were supported, restaurants, shops, gas stations, 7-Elevens, have lost 30% of their income. And no one is mowing the lawn. And there are no kids that are willing to take up the lawn mowing business. So we are seeing in a really short cosmic time the backlash of something really big going on in a much larger community. And so the city council in Farmers Branch has now said, well, we want to encourage people to move into Farmers Branch. Not those people, other people. And other people are saying, why would I move there? Your restaurants have fallen apart, your dry cleaners have fallen apart, no one will mow my lawn, etc. Your sales tax is down, your street lights are out. And so the very people who forced this legislation through and have enacted it and succeeded at a certain level of removing what they consider to be the blight on Farmers Branch are now seeing their city decay very quickly. I mean, this is within a year. This is happening very, very fast.
Dr. Suzanne, sorry.
They're not sure what they're acknowledging, but they're acknowledging their trouble because the finances are so far down.